So, I've always been interested in wildlife and in nature and in being outdoors, and I knew that I wanted to make a career out of it. So, as a start, I enrolled in the University of Waterloo's School of Environment, Resources, and Sustainability. And this program was great because it also offered enough flexibility to fit in a double major with biology. The co op program exposed me some of the directions ecologists can take in their career, but I still hadn't quite figured out where I wanted to focus my efforts. Then comes term 4B, which is right now. It's my final year of university. I enrolled in the Rewilding and Ecological Restoration course with Smurf, and boom, I said, now this is something I can see myself doing. This is something that I would like to pursue. So this podcast is my way of translating myself. It's a difficult task and somewhat of an intimidating one, but it's my attempt at diving into the roadmap of how I envision my career and hopefully laying out a framework that others can adapt for their own career goals in the environmental sector. So the following episodes outline the different phases or stepping stones that I think will be crucial for achieving my goals. I hope you can follow along, gain some insights into my goals, and find some takeaway messages that will be helpful to you. Welcome everyone to the first episode of the podcast, and this is mostly the introduction. So this first episode is basically the abstract to the paper that is my life, if you will. Before getting into the nitty-gritty, I wanted to just set the stage for who I am, what my motivations are, and what my aspirations are. So what motivates me the most is finding a way to make my work and my life meaningful. I want to produce tangible results. Of course, I do like animals and wildlife, so I want a job that is engaging, outdoors, and involves manual labor, not just sitting behind a desk. I don't want to just monitor and describe what's out there in nature. I want to do something proactive that will fix it. I want to see those tangible results. And ultimately, I want to conserve wildlife species for future generations and for my kids to see. I want to contribute to society that not only reduces our impacts on the planet, but also finds a way to live in harmony with it. I do believe that we are stewards of the earth. So where does this lead me? Well, rewilding and ecological restoration. So if we fast forward 30, 40, 50 years from now, I see myself as a team lead for an extensive rewilding project. This would be broad-scale habitat restoration with new water features like ponds and streams, and all connected to other landscapes. It would be the total design and implementation of an ecosystem. So how do I get there? Well, hopefully over the next few episodes of the podcast, I can translate my somewhat daunting end goal into an attainable roadmap of skill and knowledge development that leads me to where I want to end up. And by doing so, I hope that I can help other graduates like myself or people just looking for a bit of guidance in their career. I know the path that I will take will not be the same for everyone, but my goal is to provide some kind of framework that people might be able to adapt to their own lives. Each episode will be focused on a specific phase in the journey, and I'll discuss what that looks like for me and how it can be more widely applicable. So let's get into it. Welcome to the first episode, everyone. So this is the first episode where we're going to dive into the first phase of the roadmap, and so hopefully this will kind of give you an idea of where to start. So this first phase I'm calling the Kickstarter. This is all about discovering what you want to do, seeing how you could fit into the workforce. For many people, this stems from a culmination of their life experiences, their worldview, and their values. I found that the different experiences in my life have all played a small or large role in guiding my passions, and I learned through some of these experiences what I enjoyed and definitely also what I did not enjoy. For a lot of people, I think your undergraduate degree is the best place to explore your interests. Going into university, you may still have no idea what you want to do in life, but you meet people and you engage in activities along the way that help you to shape your values and your goals. So what does this look like for me? Well, for myself, I enrolled in Environment Resources and Sustainability because I knew I was passionate about conserving the natural world. It was also a program that allowed me to fit in a double major with biology so that I could take all the other courses I was interested in, like zoology and marine biology. But it still took a while before I really saw how I could fit into the world. During my 4B term, which is now my final year, as I've already mentioned, I'm taking a course called ERS 402, which is a senior honors research seminar. In this course, I have the opportunity to explore a topic of interest and build a research project. And the only criteria for this project is that it will be helpful to me in my future. Well, this is perfect, I thought. I can take the opportunity to learn more about rewilding projects with a specific focus on urban rewilding, and I was going to look at the intersection of humans and wildlife. So this project will be local to Ontario and will have some emphasis on a lot of the common wildlife species we find in urban settings. I already have a decent understanding of urban ecology, which was gained through other courses in university. But this project really gives me the opportunity to expand this knowledge of Ontario flora and fauna in urban settings, but also learn about urban planning considerations, community building strategies that consider ecological systems, and explore the interactions of social and ecological systems and how we can better coexist with nature. Welcome to the second episode, everyone. And in this one, we're going to look at the second phase, which is foundational skill and knowledge building. So this is about taking what you learned in high school, in your undergrad, and in your experiences up until now, and putting those into practice. Even through my co-op placements in university, I found that a lot of what I learned happened on the job. The knowledge I gained in university wasn't always directly applicable to the workplace, but your university knowledge gives you a background of information that you can rely on. I think you'll find that the little concepts and skills that you have already learned creep into your work. And this is all about building those foundational skills and knowledge. So to me, this looks like work experience that is immersed in ecology and wildlife biology. For myself, a big opportunity for building my foundation is going to be about putting what I learned from my research project on urban rewilding into practice, along with the other information and knowledge I've gained through university. As a start, I already know that I'm returning to a previous co-op in environmental consulting in the summer following my undergrad. In this position, I'll be primarily assisting with a monitoring project for at-risk bat species in Ontario. And this project considers how bats and human infrastructure are intertwined, because bats use old barns and buildings for roosting sites. So there's already going to be somewhat of an opportunity to explore how people can live harmoniously with nature, but it'll be specifically looking at bats. More importantly in this phase, after this, I envision 2 to 4 years working in some sort of wildlife biology position. I don't necessarily see myself in environmental consulting forever, but for the beginning, it's a good chance to gain hands-on experience with wildlife and species at risk to build those skills and that knowledge base. Throughout my undergrad, I spent a lot of time learning about wildlife and habitat survey techniques, species identification, and ecological principles. But actually conducting these surveys is a whole different ballgame. Getting outside and working with real animals and real ecosystems is the best way to learn the skills. For example, one of my favorite courses in my undergrad was Methods of Aquatic Ecology, where I learned a whole swath of aquatic survey techniques like electrofishing and developed my fish and invertebrate ID skills. Unfortunately, I took this course in the depths of the pandemic, so I didn't get to go out and do these things in person. But through my co-op placements, I did. And wow, it was so much more difficult and more fun to actually do these things in real life. So this phase is also a good chance to assess your strengths and weaknesses and skills and identify some knowledge gaps. For myself, I have a pretty good knowledge of turtles, snakes, amphibians, and mammals, but there are definitely some knowledge gaps in species identification for birds and bats, and I really want to get better at fish ID. So let's move on to the next phase. Okay, so the next phase, number 3, might not be applicable to everyone, but it's graduate school, and that is applicable to me. So what this phase entails is basically schooling beyond your undergrad, and this can be daunting and sometimes seem unnecessary, especially if you already have a job in the field that you want. But a master's degree does give you a level of expertise that is enticing for companies looking to fill specific positions. It can help set you apart from other candidates. And in this day and age, I'm finding it's becoming almost standard, unfortunately. So specifically to me, a master's gives me an opportunity to dive deep into some aspect of wildlife biology that interests me. It also helps me build connections with industry and academia. Through ERS, my undergrad program, we focus a lot on socioecology. While I think this is important, I want to pursue the more biophysical side of things as opposed to the social or political in my career. As such, I want to pursue a Master of Science, an MSc. I'd like to focus on a particular group of wildlife or even a particular species, but hopefully along the way also picking up some knowledge about ecosystems. I did some research, and these are some of the schools and the programs that I would be most interested in. Firstly, the Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia offers a world-renowned marine biology program, and it's something that I've considered for a long time if I wanted to move into the marine sector. Secondly, Mount Allison University in New Brunswick has a great biology program. What's cool about this school is that they have really good connections with the Canadian Wildlife Services, the federal government department, because they have a lot of research that goes on at this university. So this could be a really great place for me to work, and so it would be nice to make connections with the CWS. Lastly, Fleming College is something that has popped up a lot throughout my undergrad and with the people that I've met. They offer a really comprehensive fish and wildlife technician program that's only 2 years and gives you a lot of technical knowledge into some of the aquatic and terrestrial wildlife survey techniques. Welcome back, everyone. So the fourth phase I'm calling Immersed Work Experience, and this phase is all about skill building directly in the field that you're most interested in. So it's a chance to put into practice your knowledge from a master's degree and finally get involved in the work that will be directly applicable to your end goal. It often starts smaller scale and more general, but there should be chances for you to hone in on exactly what you want. Specifically for me, this next phase will be characterized by work in rewilding and ecological restoration. This will likely start with some more general work in wetland restoration, reforestation, or something along those lines. And depending on the topic of my master's degree, I might come out with a more specific knowledge and skill set for wildlife, or it could be more general and focused on ecosystems. It's important during this phase that I find work in an organization that allows me to grow into a leadership role focused on rewilding and restoration. During this time, I don't envision being a team lead necessarily, but more of a team member, assistant, or technician. Exposure to the work required for a rewilding project will be valuable when I eventually plan or lead my own project, which is my end goal, of course. Through research, I've identified a few target organizations that could allow me to do this. The first is Ducks Unlimited. This organization recognizes the importance of rewilding for restoring wildlife populations and combating the impacts of climate change. Ducks Unlimited focuses heavily on wetland restoration, and this is an area I could see myself in, especially if I focus on aquatic wildlife. The second organization is Wildlife Preservation Canada, which focuses on saving species at risk. This organization is an exciting one because they strive to provide opportunities for conservation scientists to grow their expertise, which is exactly what I want to do in this phase. They also promote hands-on work for species that require direct intervention. The goals of this organization are very much aligned with my personal career goals and motivations. Lastly, the Global Rewilding Alliance is a very cool organization, and they were responsible for the Yellowstone to Yukon Initiative, which was a massive 3,200-kilometer rewilding project. It would be amazing to work on a similarly grand project like this one. Alright, welcome back everyone. So this next phase, the fifth one, is titled Project Manager Experience. So this phase is all about gaining experience in a project management situation, and specifically this would be in the field that you're most interested in. I think a lot of times in environmental work, the young guns take a lot of the fieldwork responsibilities, and the more senior people tend to fall to the project management side. And that's just because their experience makes them valuable for planning fieldwork and coordinating projects. So this phase isn't necessarily as intentional as some of the other ones, but it tends to happen over time as you continue working in the field you're interested in. So it's more of a natural transition to this managerial aspect. So for myself, this will probably involve a transition to not only helping with fieldwork and implementing a rewilding project, but also being a major part of the planning and the organization of that project. It's possible that moving into a project manager role will also require moving to a new organization because of seeking out new opportunities. One direction I see this going involves a move to the federal government. The public sector usually has more opportunities for large-scale projects, especially because they have access to more funding. The Canadian Wildlife Services has successfully established many large-scale protected areas, parks, and wildlife sanctuaries, so they could be a good place to look. For example, they recently established the Scott Island Marine National Wildlife Area in British Columbia, and this was the first national wildlife area established under the new Canadian Wildlife Act. So I'm confident that there'd be more projects like this in this organization, and I think it'd be a great opportunity to be a part of them. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry also have a lot of opportunities like this, so they would be a good sector to look in as well. Welcome back, everyone. So this next phase, the sixth one, is the most exciting by far, and this is where you actually complete your goal. So this, at least, is where you complete your goal for the first time. This could be where you lead and implement your project, where you gain a special recognition for your work, reach a salary level you've been aiming at, something along those lines. It's the goal that you've been working towards. And this phase relies on the culmination of knowledge and skills developed throughout the previous phases. I think, again, this tends to be more of a natural progression in your career and less of a conscious decision that you make. So for me, this would be all about leading a large-scale rewilding project. It's difficult to predict exactly what this would look like, but I imagine it as a broad-scale habitat restoration project, again, with new water features like ponds and streams, lots of intact forest, little influence from human activity, and of course it would be extensively connected to other landscapes. This would essentially be the total design and implementation of a new ecosystem. And I think what's most important about this step is that it allows me to see the culmination of my efforts thus far in creating that tangible and functional product. This will of course be the most meaningful step in my career, and it will be very rewarding to see my plan come to fruition. I think after completing this project, I wouldn't just retire, say good enough, that's it for me, but I would imagine that from this point forward, I would continue contributing to similar projects, and I would continue project management for other rewilding activities. Okay, everyone, welcome to the final episode of the podcast. So this is the last phase, number 7. It's called Additional Skills. But this phase doesn't necessarily go in consecutive order with the rest. It's kind of going to be sprinkled throughout. And it recognizes that along the way, there are skills and knowledge gaps that you need to address in order to achieve your goals. You don't always need to become an expert in every adjacent field to yours, but it helps to be familiar with concepts, technologies, new knowledge advances, and other skills that can give you a better understanding of how to best achieve your goal. I think it's important to recognize your knowledge and skill gaps early so that you have time to fill the gaps, gain experience in those unfamiliar fields, or at least develop a better appreciation for them. So for myself, there are many skills that I know I will have to develop along the way. Unfortunately, this also means I won't have enough time to address all of these areas to gain all the skills or fill all my knowledge gaps. So it's important to recognize those and surround myself with individuals that can fill those gaps. Firstly, a lot of rewilding projects require spatial analysis for connectivity things. This requires a specific skill set in GIS and other software like Circuitscape or Linkage Mapper. I anticipate that this is an area that I'm not going to invest heavily in, but it will of course be important to collaborate intentionally with individuals who do excel in this area. It will also be important for me to at least have familiarity with these concepts and technologies. I think that I will inevitably be exposed to this work while doing rewilding and restoration projects, so it's possible that I'll develop more skill in this area than I anticipate, but I know it's something I'm not going to focus super heavily on. Another adjacent field that's important for rewilding is landscape architecture and engineering. So the actual design of an ecosystem requires in-depth knowledge of ecology and wildlife, but it also heavily relies on technological and functional design. Constructing an ecosystem can be very much a construction project that requires heavy machinery, importing of materials, and manual labor. It's not as simple as just setting aside land and assuming wildlife will return. So to make a landscape functional, it actually requires a lot more intentionality in design and the construction. Another major skill set that will be important in ensuring the success of this project is photography and marketing. Being able to communicate the project to the public is important in gaining social acceptance and support, and even funding. Consultation with stakeholders, including Indigenous groups and the general public, will be important before implementing the project to ensure that it is done equitably. Effective communication will be crucial in executing this, and photography and storytelling can be valuable tools in gaining public trust and support. As well, it will be important to communicate the progress and the success of the project after it has been implemented. It's very important for people to see how these projects can be done successfully and why they're crucial for wildlife. Okay, well, thanks for listening, everyone. I really hope this gave you some insights into how you can shape your own environmental career, because I know for me it was helpful to try imagining my life in 30 or 40 years. Just having that end goal with some more achievable steps along the way was great for envisioning where I could go from here, and it definitely makes the future seem less daunting. So until next time, bye-bye.